It's time for the last segment of the day before we wrap up this fantastic conclave right here. All right, the stage is all set as I invite our next speaker for the very last segment, Building Organizations for Sustained High Performance the India Way. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together as I invite on stage Mr. Sanjay Bell, Chairman CII National Committee of Leadership and HR, CEO and co-founder Nextcore Private Limited, Chairman Smart Wheels Inc., Palo Alto, USA. Welcome to you, sir.
Thank you very much. As we come to the last session of this two-day conclave, let me start by thanking each one of you for being super engaged. I not only found the quality of some sessions to be exceptionally good, very, very useful, very actionable insights, but also equally, if not more so, I found your engagement and the quality of the questions to be very, very sharp, very probing, and really going to the depth of finding what's the right way to really navigate the new HR codes there. Now, I just want to set the context for the last session. Look, the leader who's going to take it is Unni, who's with us, and I'm going to hand over to him really to take us through this whole kind of mystical topic on your agenda, which says the India way. So what is the India way? I'll really leave Unni to decode or demystify this entire model for us. But I just want to set a context that what is the real purpose of, whether it's any function, human resource is just one of the functions. In fact, a lot of time I don't like it calling human resource, because the moment you call it resource, it means one of those things in the balance sheet which you're just kind of plugging in to, again, it's like a cog in the wheel and you have to sweat that asset. And I think if you really think about it, the only asset, only capital which really appreciates in any organization is human capital. Everything else depreciates. Yeah? And here is a function which is a custodian of that. It's like saying that the cost or investment, whichever way you want to look at it, of human capital keeps going up. That's why increments, additional salaries, higher roles, it's all appreciating. But your computer is depreciating over 5 years. Your furniture is depreciating over 7 years. Everything else is depreciating, isn't it? Yeah, all the value of money keeps depreciating to the extent of inflation. So you just think about it. There are 25 things on which you work, tangible, intangible asset, and one of the tangible assets which appreciates is humans, and we then, this function is seen as a support and all that. I don't think it really does service. And the first thing, if you really want to do service to organization, is to first realize it yourself and go back and say that we are the only one which creates an appreciating asset. Somebody has a 10 lakh CTC, tomorrow it's going to be 12. It's not going to be 8, 6, 5, and then written on value of the human capital, isn't it? So just keep that in mind. Starting with that, why are we all here? Because we want fit-for-purpose organizations. We want to build. And the purpose is being talked about many times here, individual self. How do I manage myself, my own purpose? What is my organization purpose? But eventually it's about creating sustainable organization, perpetual organizations. We will come and go. Yeah, we will do our roles. We will do today X role, tomorrow Y role. We'll be in one organization, we'll be in another organization. But the real service we can do is to create fit-for-purpose organizations. Yeah? Fit for purpose of the context in which organizations are living. And hence, it's a constant search. And it's never a perfect answer. It could be 8 on 10, I keep saying 9 on 10 on some indicators. Somewhere we are probably very poor, and 4 on 10. Constant search of what is the right model. Model in terms of how do we, and we started today morning saying, okay, how do we allocate human capital, human asset, human resource into various roles? What are the right roles? What are the right people? What are the right people for that roles? And this is a huge jigsaw to be solved. Capital allocation, yeah? Financial capital allocation. Human capital, then financial capital, tangible assets. How many factories do I need to have? How many technology platforms do I need to have? How many gadgets do I need to, or intangible assets like brands and goodwill of a company? How do we really create everything which is perfect? Is the pursuit you and I are always in. That's right. This is what we do when we go back to work every day, kind of morning waking, or as Arvinda said, 80% of time, active time, we really spend doing that. But what we have seen, and you've had enough examples, and you would have read enough examples, seen here, talked about, many other forums also talk about that increasing the life of the company has continued to come down, despite the capability, technology, data, business model maturity going up. So how do we solve this contradiction? Everything that we have in our resource is become abundant today, relatively compared to what it was 20 years back. When if you had license, you can do business, didn't have license, you couldn't do business, you had limited marketing money, you had cost of increasing or whatever, marginal cost of supply and demand going up at that point of time. Today it keeps coming down. Everything is becoming more and more available, accessible to us. But at the same time, organizations' life continues to keep, it's like saying, and look at this contrasted with humans. Healthcare on the planet is possibly the best access, availability, and affordability is the best that it ever been. And that's positively contributed to human life, isn't it? The median age of the planet used to be 50, about 50 or 70 years back. Today it's close to 65, with some countries, which are more prosperous countries, better healthcare, almost averaging mid-80s now. So if that be the real case, with abundance of resources should be abundance of fulfillment, abundance of life. But in this case, in enterprises, it's just going down. Why are the organizations which are built for life are crashing every now and then? Something to really think about and see what are we doing. Now, one hypothesis, which I think Uni will demystify for us, is that we are into some management models of industrial era. Industrial era is more like 19th century, but more it matured in earlier 20th century, where things were done in a certain way, where sudden productivity jump happened from 1 is to possibly a factor of 100 in the first 70, 80 years, and then in the last 50 years, another factor of probably 10,000 with digitization and all information technology coming in. But the models have not kind of kept pace with that. Yeah, we still are trying to sweat the old model of efficiencies, effectiveness, and more we've got into annual performance to quarterly performance reviews and almost like saying 24/7 kind of, feedback mechanisms, and CEOs under pressure to deliver quarterly results. And there are CEOs whose average life of a CEO, and the company has come down, so CEOs come down to, I think, not more than 70 to 80% CEOs survive more than 3 years in any role today across the world. This is very low. And you look at about 50 years back, CEOs used to be a lifelong CEO, 10, 15, 20 years they used to spend. Because, and the stress is possibly the same, because they were spending 10 annual results. These guys in 2 years are spending 10 results of quarters or whatever, 8 to 10 quarters there. Yeah? So that's what it's become. It's kind of a treadmill on which we are all running. And I don't know whether it's yielding the same return or the sweat is really coming down. So something to think about. Better resources, better access, more affordable, cheaper stuff, better quality, but organizations are failing. So where is the entire thing there? Now, one concept is saying that, and that's why we need to look at something which, I don't know how much, only mention it in the time which has been given to him. Unfortunately, it's little less. But it's something about saying, is there a pill or a mantra about longevity? So something like, in Indian wisdom, we have a thing called Ayurveda. है ना? एक तो एलोपैथी होता है कि खाली और immediately हो गया. Ayurveda works a little more fundamental to your human body, the way, and all the 3 kinds of bodies are there, 3 kind of whatever, pitta, vata, all those kind of प्रकार होते हैं 3 तरह के हमारे शरीर के, और उनके हिसाब से खाना, पीना, रहना, everything is decided by that, and that gives you far better longevity, Ayurveda. So is there a corporate Ayurveda? Is there something which can really take the life, beyond this very, very ephemeral, very short-lived kind of existence we are going? Is there a wisdom approach? I don't like the called wisdom approach, which Uni uses there, and I've challenged him that. But is there but the thought is right, the intent is right. Is there a wisdom approach to capitalism? Or I would say, is there a conscious capitalism rather than a sheer radical capitalism, something where, as a CEO, pretty much 16 years I have been done 4 big roles as CEO in different groups, very large groups to startups. And I can tell you 64 to 70 quarters I have handled with the boards, and 80 to 90% of my evaluation was on pure financial outcomes of the organization. 90, in probably more than half of it, 100%. If you dramatically given revenue growth, profitability growth, EBITDA growth, return on capital, you would get a very fat bonus and a paycheck coming. If you miss that, anything else you can talk about is saying it's good, but where is the result? Where is the outcome? You are the CEO. You have to deliver financial results there. So what is that wisdom approach or this thing? And how do we defy this laws of gravity where organizations are just dropping like pinholes every now and then? And I think that's what it is. The other thing is, so it's while we call it Indian, look, another thing which I read in one of his notes only, which really stuck with me, look, we have to find that there was a traditional wisdom on longevity of human body, meaningful fulfillment of human body. Can that be transferred, all that wisdom into, or even enterprise in the businesses that countries like India's used to do till the Britishers invaded us? Are there any mantras from there we can take away and put it back into enterprise? That's really the India way. But just keep that in mind. India is not, look, we as Indians we're not saying let's reject Western and adopt Indian. That's not the point. We are not anti-Western. We are non-Western. That's a fact. We are not Western. Yeah? So we need to take the best of that world and still put our kind of tadka on that to really get the right dish, which is suited to our cultural context, but it could have a global appeal. You know, some of these things now, the biggest business in the last decade in US is yoga mats by Lululemon or equivalent of, all kinds of yoga bars and all that. So is there something not only for us, but also something for this country, finally, to give it to the world? Yeah? Japan is known for quality, Germany is known for engineering, Italy is known for design. What is India known for? Is there a management model? That's what excited me about really working with that. And hence, I think, first of all, let's change India to Bharat. Thoda sa mindset, thoda needle shift karte hain. The moment we go to Bharat, then we are thoughts like Vishwamitra, we inclusive culture, compassion, interconnectedness, all these come. Because when we think about India, then we say we are the third largest GDP in the world. ठीक है boss, but we are Bharat. हमारे खुद के 1.5 बिलियन लोग हैं, 1.5 बिलियन प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, हम अपना देख लेते हैं ना, वो थर्ड होंगे कि सेकंड होंगे कि फिफ्थ होंगे, उससे क्या फर्क पड़ता है? It's not a rat race eventually. Let's get 1 billion people to live more fulfillingly, happily in this world, rather than trying to be that India there, and let's get the best out of our experiences of the last 200 years of Western influence, but also non-Western reality that we all Indians have. So that's really the real discussion is going to be around that. And I thought it really brings the point about saying, can performance, the financial performance, and I'm really saying financial, it could be a little bit of operative also there, but can that exist with the real soul? Can this body be as beautiful, fulfilling, healthy, without the real soul behind it? So what does real soul mean? And soul means the living element of a body. ये तो शरीर तो नश्वर है ना, वो बोलते हैं कि it will come and it will go. Yeah? What remains is the soul. So what is the soul of an organization? Which is eternal, which is perpetuity. And how do we bring soul into this enterprise is something really to really think about. And I'm just going to spend the last 2-3 minutes before I hand over to this, because this is a subject very close to my heart, much before Unni was born in my life, for decades. Yeah, he knows that. And look, just observe this very simple thing. And I'm an engineer from long back from IIT, and it's still my first love is technology, engineering. It still remains with me, very, very passionate about it. And I was thinking, and I was discussing with a few colleagues there, almost every single performance measure in all enterprises, whether you're selling NGO, non-profit organizations, government organizations, schools, charity work, or as commercial as we are, is an engineering jargon that we use in organization to evaluate ourselves. I'll use some word. तो कौन से unit में काम करता है? Our organization is two-layered. Units and layered is an engineering term, okay? Input and output is an engineering term. Input, output, outcome. Yeah, this is all the physics. Yeah, input क्या है, output क्या है? Efficiency and effectiveness. Physics taught us. And we are using what is the efficiency, what is the effectiveness, return on this, all these are engineering terms. Or which lever do we need to, lever matlab kya hota hai? Pulling the lever to transform the lever lever is again mechanical, no, it's an engineering term. Or information flows, yeah, bottleneck kahan pe hai? Very normally we use, bottleneck kahan hai organization? Bottleneck is an engineering term. So imagine so much of machine we put in the organization lexicon today that it virtually subconsciously we start behaving like that. And then there are more. It's like we are re-engineering the organization. हम downsizing कर रहे हैं, downsizing, re-engineering. It's not an engineering thing. It's a living element. Where is the living element out of all these terms there? Yeah, so that's, I think, the point that he will do it. So we've really made this metaphor of organization is a machine, and we need to sweat this machine to get more profits. Quarter after quarter after quarter. And yes, of course, there is human resources. They will take care of people. They will pay the salaries on time. They will engage with people. They will do a few, counseling sessions. They will do L&D. Fine. But eventually to the purpose of that machine, because machine has to deliver more. Yeah, that's the point that I just want to leave you with. Now, is there a new metaphor where organization is treated as a living organism and not as a machine? Can we infuse soul into it? And what does it take to infuse life into this machine? Is the living machine model is what it is, I think. So it's a machine which is living. So how do we infuse life into it and really build compassion, self-awareness, interconnectedness? I think Arvinda talked a lot about interconnectedness. How do we bring these life elements, these beautiful life elements, because this is about Ayurveda, this is about longevity, to make sure that a machine is there and it's important and nobody's taking it out of the room. But if you infuse with life, can we then give that perpetuity or longevity to the organization? And what is the importance of this? There is statistically evidence of over hundreds of corporates and enterprises for the last 20 years, India Global, done by Oni to really prove this model. And can they give better financial returns eventually when you take a decadal or a multi-decadal point of view, or is it just about a few quarters? And we can debate that. It's a controversial thing still. Which works better? Life is going on. Is WUK on steroids? Let's run fast. But I'm saying at least there is an opening of mind to a new model that we can do. So can this new model pivot our enterprise success? And you have to decide for yourself. Which is a better success of an enterprise of India? Longevity, perpetuity, and an eventual CAGR, which is category growth rate, over 5-10 years' time, consistently high, longevity, and this survives? Or is it about 25% growth next quarter, 30% growth next quarter, fallout? How many people are getting laid out in the next 10 weeks in the world? Possibly 100,000. And you've seen that, Amazons and Spotify's, to virtually any and every, and these are the highest growing organizations, and they are the ones who are laying out. Now, what will wellness do when 10,000 people are getting laid off? What will your diversity inclusion do when you're going to go and do that hard task tomorrow coming out of this room? You're going to do that because that's what comes from management, and that has to be done. So is that the right model with a little bit of tadka of well-being and all that? Or do we really need to change fundamentally the model itself for human resources to really, and there is a pivotal role that human resource function will have to play. Whether we call it human resources, I call it differently, but I call it people leadership function, but is there a people potential function? What is that role that we need to play? So I just want to say it's not just India. Uni has been working very hard on it, and I'm going to now invite Uni, but before that I want to play one video. This was taken to Peter Drucker Forum about probably a year back, a little less than that. And believe me not, and Uni can elaborate there, they lapped it up pretty much, embraced it. They're saying, oh God, where were you? Kind of stuff. Yeah, we were waiting for this. There was no new thinking, management thinking. And we insisted, let's call it a living machine model. They said, no, call it India way. We love it. Because the world will at least look at it. The brand itself looks good. What is this India way? Curiosity, there's a living machine, take another management model. So they only did it. Finally, it culminated last month, in less than 3 weeks back, into a global convention of Peter Drucker Forum in Vienna, 13-14 November, where Uni was there, the vice chairman of Tata, ex-vice chairman of Tata group was there. Our Gopalakrishnan, they presented the India way. I had an invite. I couldn't travel there for this, my own kind of perspective on that. But I will let Uni really steal the show and not do that. And let's play that Peter Drucker Forum video, and then Uni, over to you.
to the India way.
Hi, my name is Valedictory, and I'm the chairman of the Living Machine Institute. We have organized the India Way as an alternative to understand what is a true measure of business success.
Also working with a group of very impressive people from India. They are saying there's a lot of companies in India who are not super happy with the current way of management and theories of management. India is not waiting. We want to do something new, so we're connecting with them, very large Indian family companies, for example, to see how we can help and combine sort of Indian traditions and way of thinking with these more Western traditions and into sort of a next management.
This is a subject which opens up a number of new facets which has hitherto not been explored. We aim to provide a new understanding of what constitutes business success, especially by bringing the idea of longevity and compounding returns as a better marker of success than growth for growth's own sake.
Living machine has brought in a new perspective. It's very, very useful to understand how a business is organized and run. So it's a very, I would say, powerful concept if it's properly understood and followed.
The world of business has become very machine oriented. Where the truth is, and all of us know this, what Katya just said a minute ago, that it is a living machine. We have an institution which is collaborated with Raka Foundation, the Living Machine Institute, which actually contemplates the idea of the living machine and says valuation is not just on cash flows, but on perpetuity value.
Well, thank you so very much, Mr. Bair, for setting that context. And yes, please put your hands together. We have with us our phenomenal speaker, Mr. Oni Krishnan, founder Long Wealth GmbH and founder Global Living Machine Institute.
Thank you. I'll just come down. I prefer to be more closer to all of you. Firstly, Sanjay, thank you for the invitation, and thank you to CII for giving us an opportunity to. No, it's fine. Can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity, Sanjay, and thank you for CII for inviting us. You've given me an onerous task for summarizing 20 years in 20 minutes, but I'll try my level best to give you an overview of what our thought process is. I will take it from the perspective of what is happening around the world and then come to India. World over, corporate mortality is increasing at a very fast rate. What do I mean by that? Great companies, all of you studied GE, the greatest company on the planet. Where is it? In the grave. So if the greatest company on the planet is in the grave, maybe we should ask why. Why is the greatest engineering company blowing doors off itself? You know what I'm talking about. The company which crashed 2 airplanes into the ground and killed more than 350 people. Boeing. Why? Why is Starbucks, one of the greatest companies, continuously firing its CEO and management team? And why is Howard Schultz coming back? Did it have a corporate governance problem? Did it have an HR problem? Did it have a business model problem? Did it have some other problem? Are you getting the drift of this? So why are great companies failing more regularly? Why did the national banking standard of Switzerland, Credit Suisse, go bankrupt? Ever wonder? Why are the greatest companies failing faster than ever before? Is the question that I ask you to think about. Do not read what the press writes. The press, they are very lazy, so they would like to write something very easy and convenient. You have to dig deep as to why great organizations are dying faster than ever before. Question number one. Question number two, why is that in workplaces around the world, people have increasing level of stress, loneliness, self-harm, opioid abuse, and suicide? Why? Is there a connection between the way corporations are burning out collectively, after all a corporation is nothing but a collection of human beings, with the individual who's being burned out? Could there be a connection? Ever wondered? Why is it that great cities which once stood in America have become empty shells of their former self? For example, Flint, Michigan. Ever heard of the city? It is where General Motors' largest plant stood and their entire supplier ecosystem stood. Why is that city today a ghost city? Why is that city doesn't have even a water supply? Ever wondered? Why is that 3 days ago, a CEO of a very large insurance company in the world unfortunately got shot dead and killed on the streets of New York? Why? Do we ask why? Or do we consider all this normal? We are living in a highly abnormal world where these trends are continuing to accelerate. And this session is really to ask you the question, should India emulate these global trends or question some of these trends and dare to go in a different direction? Do we have that in ourselves to dare to go in a different direction? Much of what you've seen is that the world is ready to receive India. The question is India ready to go to the world? So these are some introductory comments just to give you some provocation, to give you some sense of what we have been up to. And with these questions, maybe I will play a small video maybe, or my presentation should come here. Yeah, so I would just first focus on HR. Firstly, I am not an HR expert. Most of our work gets done with the owners of companies, and then we get partnered with HR. So forgive me if I make any mistakes on any important terminology in HR. You guys are the experts. Having said that, the first slide, please. So I have some questions here. I'll continue to ask these questions, and then we'll come to a part where we can share some answers. So we believe from having observed companies, HR has a very specific role, in our view, which is to be the guardian of the life force of the organization. Just like our body has a life force, organizations are also endowed with a life force. And you can feel it. You can go to a company, I think, who was it, the very famous management thinker said, if you go to a company, you can smell the culture. What is the guy's name? I forget his name now. But basically, you can feel the life force in the air, in the surroundings. You can touch it, you can feel it, right? So HR has, in our view, a very important pivotal role in being guardians of that life force. And next slide. And I think owners, at least from whomever we work with, they are seeking a lot of support from HR to be a critical core partner to this. In an understanding of HR which is not maybe limited to the mundane things and the staff rolling, getting people on board, hiring and all that is fine. But I think many owners and CEOs have evinced interest of HR trying to be more a partner to them, and especially driving performance, enduring performance, what we call perpetual performance, and delivering long-term shareholder returns. So this is just a quick introduction, just to sort of place where we see HR, and we believe that HR has a very significant role in playing these, in fulfilling these duties. Go ahead. I'll just take you back to kindergarten a little bit. Maybe you heard the story of the golden goose. The golden goose, when taken care of by the farmer, lays an everlasting supply of golden eggs. I'm sure you remember. So let's examine that story a little more, right? So we have take care of the goose, the living, and it lays a perennial supply of golden eggs. You get more of golden eggs. But as I narrated in the earlier section, what we see in today's companies, in today's corporate atmosphere, more and more companies which are golden gooses, which have the capacity to lay a long or abundant supply of golden eggs, are getting slaughtered. And I think this trend is continuing, as I mentioned earlier. And I think you can play the video now. I'll give you another small video which sort of explains the living machine, which I think Sanjay talked about in a very simple way, and then I'll continue with the rest of the presentation, which is going to be more deeper.
It is no secret that company lifespans are dwindling. Their steep decline is well documented. But do we understand this phenomenon? Are we asking why? After decades of working with top companies, my colleagues and I have unearthed a glaring blind spot in the conventional success metrics of businesses. But before I reveal the missing link and metric, a quick story. It is a timeless tale about a golden goose. A farmer had a goose that laid a golden egg every day. Yet he wanted more. So he cut the goose open, expecting a treasure trove inside. Alas, in his short-sightedness, the farmer slayed his most prized asset and the very source of his wealth. This story is emblematic of a disturbing trend we have observed in modern management and theory. A business, much like the fabled goose, is a living machine. Yet, under the prevailing management doctrine, we hollow out businesses to lifeless, meaningless, money-extracting machines. Employees become cogs in the relentless pursuit of efficiency at any cost. So what is the critical metric we are missing? It is longevity arising from the vitality of the living. Even so, we are succumbing to the drumbeat of short-term gains at a faster rate than ever before. When businesses fixate on quarterly or yearly growth, stagnation, burnout, and a sense of disconnection follow. Symptoms of a business slowly bleeding towards insolvency. I have seen firsthand the degradation of life force of the living elements, leading to falling longevity. It is painful to watch hurting owners, employees, and sending shockwaves of crises into wider society. For 19 years, I have nurtured the living machine, a model that puts the living elements of business in the rightful position, driving the machine elements, thereby reconciling these apparently contradictory paradigms. This is a model born from keen observation across cultures and since codified by decades of research. This is lived experience distilled. That which is perpetual is that which is living. An organization that nurtures the health of its living elements prioritizes longevity, which generates more than 70% of lasting cash flows. You can feel the difference in the quality of mindset, purpose, culture, trust, and creativity. Living machines are a world away from the linear, stressful chase for incremental returns of commerce machines. Instead, living machines access higher-order human faculties and allow them to flourish, and lasting economic returns follow. And so, I'll leave you with two questions. Are you valuing the longevity of your business? And if not, could this poorly understood success metric be just as critical, if not more, than shorter-term growth, which presently dominates management thinking?
Right. So that should have given you some perspective of what we're trying to get done. So I'll sort of break it down further, get you into some details, and then maybe you can have a Q&A. So coming back to the presentation then, the question is, what is life force? So in our experience, while you have a detailed research, which is there in your delegate packs, which you can study, at an overall level, it starts with leadership mindset. So those are assumptions which the leadership team is making. Then leadership habits, and then purpose, values, trust, culture, and creativity. Now, most of this, if you look at it, arises from the human, arises from people. And every element of this living or life force comes out of HR in a certain sense. And you are the custodians of this and maintaining this. What is the other side of the equation? As I have mentioned in the video, the other side of the equation is financial, because Sanjay mentioned it. We are not in any meditative mode or mystical mode myself, because we have to meet boards and CEOs and owners who are tied to corporate performance. And this kind of performance, unfortunately, has gone missing in the modern management world for whatever reason. We can talk about it offline. But in modern finance, there is a very large amount of value, which is called perpetuity value, which is currently not understood or examined in modern management. We have revived that topic and attached it to the living element, because as I said in the video, that which is living is that which is perpetual. If only a living thing can perpetuate, only a living thing can adapt, only a living thing can regenerate, a dead machine cannot do so. And this is one of the reasons we find very large organizations, very highly respected organizations like GE. I do not know whether you're aware, GE hit 188 quarters to the cent, a perfect machine, devoid of the living. And therefore, it lies dead in the grave. So, nature did not create straight lines. Nature did not create straight lines. It's very unnatural. So when you see a company which is continuously having a straight line and continuously delivering on those numbers, be suspicious, because it is artificial, it is not organic, it is not natural. Mother Nature is always operating on curved trajectories, which we call nonlinear. So I'm just illustrating this concept is really important, and many companies we have studied. I'm going to talk about one or two companies in slight depth today so that you get a flavor of it. Some of these companies continue to baffle. How did these companies go off the rails? Did they not have the best board? Did they not have the best governance? Did they not have the best HR? Did they not have the best CEO? The answer is they had everything, but still they slipped. And that's really the question we would like to answer. So as I've been saying, why? And we need to ask that question, why? Because when great companies disappear, they also leave behind some other things, which is societies pay a heavy price. This is Flint, Michigan. So the cost when Byju's went down, how many people had to suffer? When Byju's went on the rampage to aggressively accelerate sales, how many people did suffer within the company? I'm just taking one name. It is not to say that all the companies are bad, but there are companies which are aggressively trying to go quarter to quarter, maximize short-term numbers. There is a price to be paid by society too. And of course, individually, I think the previous panel expounded on it quite well. It leads to anxiety, burnout, stress, opioid use, etc. So we believe these dots are connected. These are not happening randomly. These are having some connection with each other. And we believe, therefore, this is the unheard cry of modern business. The Western world is getting up to answer this question because they cannot tolerate it anymore. The pain and suffering that it has caused there is so high. The question is, do we in India want that pain and suffering to come to us by emulating blindly the models of leadership and management and success which they have portrayed for the last 40 to 50 years, which we have willy-nilly accepted without maybe sufficiently interrogating them? This is the larger question which each one of you need to hopefully carry back to your organization and ask that question, have we willy-nilly copied some of these? Because we emulated, I think there was a whole period of corporate India which was all about benchmark. Wonderful, let us do a lot of benchmarking, but also how about next practice, next management? We need to think about that. And I think, as I said, this is not normal, and in no way, I don't know if you've read one of the top psychologists and trauma experts of the world, Gabor Mate, talks about in his latest book, the myth of it's not normal. This is not a normal society working. Pick up a book, please read the Gabor Mate's book. He argues about that. I think connecting to Sanjay's point, I think we have a very powerful model on the efficiency part. We are focusing a lot more on the efficiency metrics, but we are not sufficiently focused on the effectiveness metrics. Perpetuity is an effectiveness metric. Profitability is an efficiency metric. These are very different metrics. We need a dynamic balance between efficiency and effectiveness. Because Drucker said, effectiveness amplifies efficiency. Drucker said, if effectiveness amplifies efficiency, it's my submission to you, perpetuity amplifies profitability. It gives the compounding, nonlinear returns. Because human beings have that capacity to be, as you rightly said, flourish and be more productive than holding them hostage to quarter numbers. So this is our mission. We are very happy that the Drucker Forum has embraced it completely. We believe that longevity is a superior success metric than growth for growth's own sake. Or longevity is a superior success metric than fast food-like growth. Fast food-like growth. So that's our mission. We are not saying growth is not important. We say growth should serve longevity. Growth should serve longevity. It's not to create dualisms. We need both growth and longevity, but not growth at all costs. The cost which many companies have already paid by being in the graveyard, and the cost that individual human beings are paying through mental stress and others. I think folks knew about this in India, and thank God we met them very early on in the game. And they said certain things which stuck with us. And especially this person knew about it, I think, far, far before even the Western world is now talking about longevity. Oh my God, Unni Krishnan has come from India. He's saying longevity. But this gentleman saw the future. And another person associated with the group asked us these questions when we were in our initial stage of this journey back in 2006. His name is Mr. Krishna Kumar. He used to be the director of Tata Sons and Tata Trust. His first question when we initially got to know him is, Unni, do you think there is a life force or a soul in an organization? The exact word was soul. I was flummoxed because I was not able to answer that question immediately. His next question was, can the soul speak to my leadership and keep their conscience? And if it can maintain the conscience of our organization, can it be an index to long-term value of the group? Absolutely penetrating questions, and his last question is something that we are running with even today. Why are great organizations turning out to be empty shells of their former selves? I think these are compelling questions which we couldn't refuse. And this is one of the reasons we have been on an 18 or 19-year journey, because we just felt fired up that these questions deserve to be answered. And yes, we have tested it in many Tata companies, Godrej companies, some other well-known Indian groups, the TVS group, etc. We find that every time these aspects are brought to debate, there is a lot of interest at a board level, at a leadership level. How are we really managing the life force and the living elements? How are they producing perpetuity value? Are we trading a lot of our perpetuity value for short-term returns? In that process, are we destroying our culture? Are we destroying our values? Are we destroying the trust of the brand? These are very powerful questions that we have dealt in we're happy to share with any of you if you're interested in the case studies. Then we wanted to put the idea to the test because those were all experiential. So we took up a research which was basically to take India's top 100 companies and say, is there a connection between the health of the living and the perpetuity value of these companies? Let's see. And that's what we did for about 5 years. And we could clearly see that the health of the living elements of each organization over a decade, mark my words, not a quarter, not a year, not even 2 years, over a decade, connect with each other. Now the question is, as human beings, we are so driven by instant gratification, we cannot wait for 10 years. We want to have a result tomorrow morning. But in that process, we have possibly squandered the longevity value of the organization. So I think the question is, what is the time window that you're looking at in research to see the connection? If you're looking at for 1 or 2 years, you might not see the connection. It might seem aberrational. It might not have a connect. I'll show you some data so you can see it. These are some companies, very interesting companies. I would call them yogi companies compared to bulls and bears. Bulls and bears have some tendencies, a little animalistic in nature. I would call these companies yogi companies or yogi companies. The reason I call that is, for example, let me give you a small question and you'll get a sense of why I'm saying it. For example, if I said Pidilite, other than those people who are in the industry, if I said, do you know the owner of Pidilite? I think you would be a bit hard-pressed to come up with the answer, who's that person? You would not know that person. Why? He's not busy talking on CNBC about quarterly numbers. He hardly comes there. He's busy building his institution for perpetuity. So I think if you look at many of Titan, you might say, a very well-known Tata company. Do I know the CEO of the Titan company? Maybe not immediately accessible on the top of your memory. But certain other names, if I told you, you would say, hey, I know this person. I see him regularly in the newspaper having parties or driving an expensive car or whatever it is. So I'm trying to also show you there is a qualitative character difference between the companies which pursue longevity than the companies who are maybe perhaps what we call flashy objects, shiny objects. They're looking very nice, but then suddenly you see they're gone. Do you know one particular airline which wanted to go very high? Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. Go ahead. So I think this is the real crux of the issue as far as HR is concerned, which is that perpetual returns have to be earned being the key word, by nurturing, somebody uses the word compassion and all I heard it, nurturing compassion to the living element, which is the goose. So somewhere along the way, in the hurly-burly of management, in the hurly-burly of getting results, we forget love, compassion, caring, nurturing. Instead, we operate, as Sanjay very rightly said, we turn the goose into a machine. The moment you turn the goose into a machine, we know what the farmer ended up with. He tried to put his hand into the goose to get some golden eggs. Neither did he get a golden egg, he also in the process killed the goose. So the question is, what do we want? Do we want to run an extraction machine where we put human beings into the meat grinder? Or do we want to nurture a living institution which is going to produce compounding economic returns over a 10, 15-year horizon? That's the choice that you have to make, educate, in my view, to the owners who sometimes, or CEOs who might be sometimes confused because they are being chased for performance, performance, performance. But what type of performance? What quality of performance? What character of performance equally matters, because otherwise the goose might not be around after you finished your performance. So these are some of the case studies. I don't know, Sanjay, do we have time? 5 minutes, okay. 5 minutes. I'll try to go through one case study maybe. This is the case study of Starbucks. If you're interested, it's a very classical case study of this problem. Go ahead. So this is 2007, and this is a time when Starbucks has just transferred itself from the owner or the person who led it, Howard Schultz, to the executive management team. This is an email which was written by Howard Schultz to his management team. This is marked as commoditization of the Starbucks experience. You can see it on the top. And I particularly draw your attention to the last paragraph. In case people cannot see it, I can read it. Many of these decisions, so have you seen the second paragraph? Over the last 10 years, in order to achieve growth, development, and scale necessary to go from 1,000 stores to 13,000 stores and beyond, we have made a series of decisions. Now comes the real part. That, in retrospect, have led to the watering down of the Starbucks experience and the Starbucks experience with the employees also. And what might some call the commoditization of our brand. Now, the interesting part is in the last paragraph. Many of these decisions were probably right at that time, and on their own merit would have not created the dilution of the experience. But in this case, just that's the kicker, the sum is much greater and unfortunately more damaging than the individual pieces. That is a clue for all of you. The life force which connects the assumptions, the leadership, values, culture, brand, had been made separate of each other. The decisions were made separate of each other in the quest for scale. And what happened? You had a net effect where everything collapsed within the company. Guess what happened? A few days after this, the entire management team was fired, and Howard Schultz came back, and he wanted to put the life back in the company, and he started a set of decisions. And this is a speech which he made for investors post that traumatic, difficult period, where he talks about some of those things, which is you can't let customer relationships, culture get buried while you focus on sales, profits, competition, your investors, and so on. So I think there was a realization within the company, especially from him, that something serious had happened within the organization, and it needed to be shared openly with the public, that a series of new decisions need to be taken. Now, the reason I'm articulating all this is in many organizations, in a quest for quick growth and scale, many decisions are made very quickly. But when you put the sum total of all the decisions together in a systemic frame to see whether the life force of the organization has been impacted, many a time there could be a very serious impact which might not have been accounted. We call that phenomenon bleeding insolvency. Many companies experience bleeding insolvency. For example, HP suffered it for more than 10 years before it became bankrupt. Kodak suffered it for 12 years before it went bankrupt. So companies do not become overnight bankrupt. They bleed to insolvency. And the question is, what are they bleeding? They are bleeding the life force out of themselves before they hit financial insolvency. This is just one example. There are so many other examples, but there is also a repeat case study. This is a case with the employees. This is around 2022, immediately after the after the COVID. I think what happened was another management team came. They allocated all the capital. I think you talked about capital allocation. They allocated all capital for share buybacks. You know what are share buybacks? They buy the shares back to pump up the market valuation of the firm. And what happened? Most important capital, which was supposed to be diverted to people, training, maintenance of high capability of baristas, and their training went completely down, due to which today, if you go to many Starbucks on high streets around the world, you see the store is dirty, not kept properly. The experience in Starbucks is very poor. I'm not talking about India, I'm talking about globally. So the misallocation of capital, from where it was allocated, it was more than $3 billion which were allocated to share buybacks. Instead, even if a small amount of that money was reallocated for training, for improving the employees, the baristas, what would have been these kinds of questions rarely come up at senior leadership decisions. Are we investing for longevity, or are we investing for quick buck growth? Now, I do not have time and permission from Sanjay, so I have to wind up, but there's plenty of stuff we would be happy to share with you. And the India Way is a movement which we have just started with the Drucker Forum. We believe India can look beyond some of these models and question some of these models and evolve some new practices. And that is the invitation we have for all of you. Thank you so much.
Now hold the presentation there. Thanks, Sunny. Maybe if there is an India case study, some brand of today, there's some India case study there? Or why don't we take one India case study so that it's more relatable.
Can you just show the pharma company? I can't name the company, I'm sorry. That'll be a problem.
Tell us the revenue, Google the revenue, you'll find which company.
So this is a large Indian family-owned pharmaceutical company which is in the second or third generation. I'll deliberately try to hide the information so that you don't guess. Now, one of the big problems was that when the founder passed away, there was a serious disagreement between the two siblings. One of them male, one of them female. Maybe you'll start guessing now. And the two of them started to have a major dispute between what would be their responsibilities. The son wanted to be more back-end. The lady wanted to be more front-end. There were severe disagreements because the father was the connection between the two. And this started to impact the human resources, the way people were being treated, how they're being trained. There was never before in the history of the company they had any US FDA violations or quality violations. All of a sudden they started to come. The factories which were not reporting any quality defects suddenly started to have very high degree of quality defects. Many high-level management team members suddenly started to leave. I hope you're getting a sense of what was happening to the living elements of the organization. They were being distorted, they were being violated. Now, I'll just show you some data. Look at, so 70%, if you see over there, the midline, is what we believe as Long Wealth as a healthy company's perpetuity value. So the years 2013, 14, 15, 16, and 17 represent the time when the founder and the relationship between the family members and their impact on corporate decision-making were unified. So there was a very strong, healthy environment within the top management. You can see clearly during those years, the company exceeded 70% and even approached 90% in perpetuity value. Even just a year after the founder went, you can see how fast perpetuity started to drop and the amount of value which was destroyed, because you have to see some of these bars are in the order of 10,000s of crores. These bars represent the order of value of 10,000s of crores. So the next slide is a very important slide. So you see the market observed health of the living index was 60. The perpetuity value was 17,000 crores. We felt that the company could easily come back to a health of living score of 80. The market value or the perpetuity value would have been around 49,000 crores. So the opportunity to create value through the living elements was about 32,000 crores. Now, these kind of analysis usually never come to a board, never come to a senior leader to really examine how does the living contribute to value creation. All other metrics get debated till the cows come home. But the most important metric, which is how does the life force of the organization create perpetuating value into the future, and people in finance should know, or people who have an inclination in finance, please go home and read. Perpetuity value is the bulwark of enterprise value. If you remove perpetuity value of a company tomorrow, that company's value is only worth 2 to 3 years of cash flow, which is peanuts. I stop here.
No, perfect. I think just leave it.
I think there are more. We invite you to talk and we can share more.
Yeah, the engineer in me has grilled him for at least 50 case studies I've personally gone through, and we've spent 4-5 hours together, case study after case study, and Uni and his colleagues have had patience to take me through it because I had every possible piercing question that a CEO or a boardroom will have to play a devil's advocate to really ratify this model, and it's okay. What the beauty about this is it started by the story of a duck, it ended by real rupees crore on a balance sheet, how it really starts reflecting. And I think that's the, and it's not like This thought happened in like a couple of years back. It's been a 20 years of kind of a research there. I'm not trying to sell the model, I'm trying to sell the philosophy of the model. That's the more important, don't worry about the model. Yeah, the philosophy is that humans are central to progress and perpetuity. The living of the human, the soul of the organization is central to this. And I think you are custodians of that. And that's what I wanted to leave this conclave at. If there is a new HR mandate, I would say bring the soul of the organization right up front. Purpose, why are we there? Why do we wake up? And everything really flows then. Compassion, love, interconnectedness, trust, all these things will start flowing. And then of course the consequences will be not to take the machine out of it, because eventually, yeah, please, go ahead.
I think what people don't get is when people hear all this love and compassion, what they don't understand is that they can get a lot more prosperous also in the deal, which is perpetuity value. And by not being looking at your own enlightened self-interest, and by looking at narrow interest and immediate interest and instant gratification, we are destroying that huge amount of value.
Yeah, and we've seen about, at least once, he's taken me through about 20 case studies of some of the biggest corporate houses in India. A lot of people sitting in this room belong to that. And even if you've seen growth, it is the opportunity lost if it is without the right soul infused. It could be growth for a few years. But I'm not going to really do a further fireside given the time, but I would take a few questions, 2 or 3 questions there if there are, raise of hands there. So Runi, and there is a hand I already see at the back. Please take the mic at the back there. Because this is where I wanted to leave this whole thing about saying that this would be central. This is how we started the context of India. We wanted to end up with the India way. And can we as a collective team take it to the world? First to India and then to the world. Yeah, you should answer this.
Yeah, so thank you for the session. It's indeed a compelling problem which we all see. I would suggest if you can tell us
Just bring a little closer to you.
a quick fix which we can implement today when we go back to work.
Okay, a quick fix. Do you have, again, you asking for perpetuity value and a quick band-aid, say, can I stop hemorrhage, kind of stuff.
I want like a tool, because we've seen what the why and what the problem statement is.
Sure.
Like, can we look at one particular solution which we can implement?
Okay,
Yeah,
Uni would love to say, hire me. I would not say that's a quick fix. Yeah, that's definitely not, but I think...
I would just say, dare to ask why. Dare to ask why. A GE, a company which all of you in this room collectively learned in your business school as the greatest company on the planet, why is it dead? Ask those difficult questions to your own self, rather than looking at a newspaper, GE is dead, okay, so what? Hell, it matters. Because your entire business management curriculum was based on that company. And you're still continuing to learn about a company which is lying dead in the grave. So you can't live with zombie ideas. Question zombie ideas.
Good, I think. Very, very pertinent, yeah. Okay, starting with here, we'll come to you. Quick. Yeah.
Thanks, Sanjay, and thanks, Uni. I think at the last 1.5 days, we've also been discussing that talent now sees long-term career as 3 years in an organization. So where talent is not going to be staying for more than 3 years, where you have families and founders who are looking at the long-term view, it's fine, but over a period of time, most founder organizations have gone with executive management. And talent staying 3 years, how do we
how do you square
the culture of perpetuity?
Yeah, how do you square this? Yeah, I think it's a great question.
It's a great question.
I would say 2 things. One, I think we need to understand firstly what a business represents in its true nature to society. They represent golden gooses to society. They are not the property of an owner. They are property of the society at large. So therefore, many of the owners think about it as trusteeship or guardianship, etc. That is the true way to understand an institution, because we know what happened to General Motors, Flint, and do other researches, what happened to Kodak's 50,000 employees when Kodak went bankrupt. Those 50,000 people did not have health insurance. That was not lovely. It was very bad to society, right? So I think first we need to think what a business means and stands for. It is not a fiefdom of one guy or 1 or 2 guys. It represents a collective build-up of social capital and society's care and love, which has been extended to that. That's one. The second, again, going back to what Sanjay said, if the metrics of success, which are propagated in the business, are short-term, your people and talent will be short term. Why am I saying this with so much confidence? Because if you look at Kodak or any of these companies which bankrupt, they attached quarter to quarter numbers to their incentive packages. And that is, in my view, something which corporate India, and HR is at the center of this question, has to answer. Is that the right way to go? Do we want to continue with those ideas which have shagged out, broken down the economy there, to come to our country and destroy our great institutions by adopting those methodologies without sufficiently introspecting and interrogating them? Is that the right measure of success, that we want our young talent and managers who then run like rats and behave like rats to achieve those numbers?
Yeah, that's a very, very important thing. I think, Malika, just to add on to that, as a business leader, revenue leader for the last many years now, I told about 80-90% of my rewards have been very, very short-term oriented. I've earned probably exponentially more on very efficiency-led rather than effectiveness. So we first need to change the matrix there. And hence this discussion has to start at the boardroom, not at the employee. We just wanting to send you, getting sensitized to you, because you're custodian of human people potential. So you should be sensitized, but this has to start from there in the boardroom matrix. The moment what gets measured gets done. We saw that yesterday, and somebody added and saying what gets measured and rewarded gets even faster done. So can we measure first of all, and can we reward perpetuity? If we start doing those two things, automatically then people are just, will come in 3 years. I understand the challenge of short career, wanting to deliver, move on to the next company, get a hike. I think these are pragmatic things, but at least a large part will get done if metrics are in the boardroom. So thank you. I think there's a question here. Let's take this. And there was another hand at the back. Yes.
Yeah, so my question is regarding, you spoke about conscious capitalism, but we always see that in the short term, the radical capitalism will always kill conscious capitalism in the short term. Secondly, long-term value creation for an organization is always a result of long-term prospects of customers as well as investors. If the investors and customers are able to see long-term prospects, only then an organization can create long-term value. So how do you tackle this investors and customer question?
Yeah,
for instance,
so let me try and answer that. I get your question saying that if the world wants a short-term return, how can you create a perpetual metric for that? That's right.
The example was, so one of the organizations that I saw is DMart. We currently in this situation are seeing instant gratification and quick commerce moving at a fast pace and killing DMart. So that's a living example in front of us.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think example, one of the success was DMart, and isn't DMart now up for becoming a potential GE because of the quick commerce? Because the world is investing in all the loss-making Zeptos and whatever Instamarts of the world are getting valued at $5 billion in no time, in 2 years of life and this. So how do you do that?
So,
Yeah.
so I think 2-3 things. One, this is a very good question, firstly. I think the same question is applicable to, for example, Kodak. The same thing is applicable to Nokia. The same question, I'm saying. And the answer to it is that these companies have not attended to the emergent needs of the customer because the life force within their organization has already been depleted. Let me give you an example of the one which I know because I spoke to the board of Kodak after they went and filed for Chapter 11. So I can narrate that story as an example to your question. So when we spoke to them, what they said was, because after Chapter 11, they sing like parrots. There's no issue. So when they narrated, what they said was, this is the other thing that the press got very wrong, because if I ask you a question now about Kodak, I'm pretty sure you would have the wrong answer, which is that the standard narrative which the press put out was that Kodak disappeared or went bankrupt because it did not understand digital photography. Wrong. Absolute hogwash. Kodak had invented digital photography 30 years before Samsung. 30 years, not 30 months, 30 years. So why did a company which knew digital photography deliberately not pursue that line of business which was emergent in the space of customers and the needs of stakeholders. Why did it not? The answer, unfortunately, goes back to the answer which I gave her, which is management incentives, compensations of Kodak were exclusively linked with quarterly numbers. And they were pursuing that as the ultimate metric of success. And the net profit of the film business was 35% with written down assets, while digital photography, being emergent, was only giving you 22% margin. So guess what all the managers at the top did?
So nothing precludes as to what, let the time will tell, the tale of what is happening to DMart and all that going forward. Yeah? So just give it one more last question we'll take. I think that one of the ladies had it. Yeah, please.
My question is, while this concept is very interesting, what inspired you to go for this concept, and what was the first outcome that you achieved?
The first question's answer is Mr. Krishna Kumar, the person whose picture was there. So he asked us this question in 2006. I was working at that time on Taj, the brand, and they were going through a very bad period at that time because 30 to 40 global competitors had entered the Indian market in 2006, 2007. I do not know whether you remember those days. But today all those 40, 50 competitors are in the market already. The question was, how could Taj respond to that global blitz of brands which were entering the Indian market, where Taj had been traditionally the #1 brand. And we worked with the management team, and if you're interested more about the case study, we can talk about offline. I cannot talk about all those details publicly.
Sure.
And what are the first outcome?
The first outcome was the Taj. One example was the work with Taj, and of course the other one, which is also very dear to me, is the turnaround of Godrej Consumer Products. At that time, 2004, when Adi Godrej and his family approached us to have a discussion about it, we had worked with them. The market value of the company was around 3,000 crores. I do not know what it is now, but we were involved with the company till it became 12,000 crores. And there are other case studies. We can happily share more details.
Thank you. I think we'll have to just give a close. You may have return flights or destinations to go. Thank you very much, Uni, but over to you, ma'am. Yeah.
Thank you. Can we have a louder round of applause? I must say, didn't I mention that we did save the best for the last? Well, two dynamic leaders and such a dynamic address. So thank you so much for being with us here and taking your time out and really adding that true special moment right here at this conclave. With that, may I please invite on stage Mr. Avijit Bhattacharya to felicitate both our speakers with a memento. May I please invite on stage Mr. Sanjay Bell and Mr. Uni Krishna to join us, please. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Would also like to thank Mr. Krishnan for taking your time out and being a part of this conclave and adding that value to why we are here today.